Level 1. The Retainer. You own a computer repair shop in a strip mall in Tampa, between a nail salon and a sandwich place that changes owners every 14 months, and the strangest afternoon of your life begins with a man crying at your counter. His name is Gerald Fisk. He's 52, sells commercial real estate, and he's brought in a laptop that won't start, and while you're running diagnostics, he's hovering, which customers do, and then he's sweating, which they don't. When the screen comes alive, you see why before you can look away. The open email account isn't his work one. It's a second life, years deep, an affair conducted with the meticulous stupidity of a man who saved everything. You do what you always do, which is nothing. You've seen it all in 11 years behind this counter, because a repair shop is a confessional with an hourly rate. People hand you the sum total of themselves in a plastic case, their photos, their money, their midnight searches, and then they stand there making small talk about the Buccaneers while you hold their entire lives in a diagnostic window. Early on, it awed you. You told Carla once that you knew more true things about this town than the newspaper, the police, and both pastors combined, and she said, "That sounds less like a skill and more like a loaded gun." And you both laughed, because it was years before either of you would find out she was right. Tax fraud in spreadsheets named vacation photos, search histories that would end marriages and careers. Your policy has always been the mechanic's policy. You fix the engine, you don't discuss what's in the trunk. You quote Gerald $180 for the repair, and then Gerald does the thing that changes your life. Unprompted, voice shaking, he slides $500 bills across the counter, on top of the repair fee, and says, "For your discretion, going forward, monthly." You didn't ask. That's the detail you'll polish for years like a lucky coin, the load-bearing fact of your entire self-image. You never asked. Gerald built his own cage, appointed you warden, and set your salary, all in one sentence. Because a guilty man with money doesn't wait for the knock. He prepays for the silence and calls it insurance. You should hand it back. You can feel the version of you that hands it back, standing about 6 inches to your left, and you watch that man the way you'd watch a bus pull away. The shop cleared $3,100 last month against $2,900 in costs. Your sister Carla's kid needs braces you already promised to split. The $500 goes in the drawer. Gerald comes back the first of every month like a utility bill that apologizes to you. And here is what you learn from him, the founding theorem of everything that follows. You never threatened Gerald. Gerald threatens Gerald. Every night, in his own head, free of charge, forever. Fear is the only product on earth where the customer does the manufacturing and pays you for the inventory. 6 months in, Gerald refers a friend. Think about that sentence until it stops making sense, because it never will. A man being quietly bled introduces a golfing buddy with a similar problem and a similar laptop, the way you'd recommend a good dentist. The buddy pays $700 a month. You now have a word for what the drawer money is, and you refuse to say the word, so you invent a different one. You call them retainers. You call them clients. Language is the first thing corruption buys, and it always shops there before it goes anywhere else. Standing in the shop that December, doing the math on $1,200 tax-free dollars a month, you feel the ground tilt toward the rest of your life. All you have to do is keep never asking. And then, one slow Tuesday in February, with rent due and the sandwich place changing owners again, a laptop comes in from a city councilman's office, and for the first time in 11 years, you go looking. Level 2. The Newsletter. There's a line between a man who accepts silence money and a man who invoices for it, and you cross it so gradually that no single morning contains the crime. First, you look where you used to not look. Then you keep what you used to wipe. Then, with the councilman, you master the form that will build everything, the note that never threatens. You send a polite letter from a privacy consulting service, offering for a monthly fee to help him manage his exposure. Exposure to what, it doesn't say. It doesn't have to. The guilty write the threat themselves in the space you leave blank, which means, in the eyes of the terrified reader, the letter is somehow both a knife and a life raft. The councilman subscribes at $1,500 a month. Within 2 years, you have 19 subscribers, and you have learned the actuarial tables of shame. Affairs pay steadily but eventually lapse, because affairs end or marriages do. Financial sins pay forever, because the statute of limitations is a rumor to a frightened man. The best subscribers, and it took you time to believe this, are the ones whose secrets are smallest. A megachurch deacon pays $900 a month over a years-old arrest that was expunged, legally erased, and he pays anyway because his terror was never about the law, it was about his wife's face. You keep the books in a spreadsheet titled Newsletter, subscribers listed by nicknames, Golf, Casserole, Pontoon, and the domestic comedy of your evil is not lost on you. You are a man in cargo shorts eating a Publix sub, updating a churn model for human dread, worrying about client retention like every other small business owner in Florida. You research competitors, discover you apparently invented a boutique version of an ancient industry, and feel, God help you, proud. There's even customer service. When Golf loses his sales job in the downturn, he writes to the consulting service, this fiction you invented, genuinely apologizing for a late payment, and you catch yourself drafting a reply granting him a hardship reduction, 60 days at half rate, and you actually send it, and he actually thanks you. A man thanks his own parasite for bleeding him slower, and you accept the thanks, and this is the moment an honest observer would identify as the deepest point of the sickness. It doesn't feel deep. It feels like a Tuesday. That's the thing about descent nobody puts in the movies. There's no falling sensation. The elevator is carpeted, and the music is fine, and every floor looks like the lobby. Carla notices the money, because sisters audit harder than the IRS. The shop hasn't changed, but you paid for her son Marcus's braces outright, then his baseball camp, then half her roof after the hurricane clipped it, and one night on her porch she asks you straight, "What's the real business?" And you give her the cover story. Refurbishing and reselling bulk corporate equipment, boring on purpose. And Carla, who raised you after your mother got sick, who can read you like a gas gauge, looks at you for a long moment and decides, visibly decides, to believe it. That decision is the first real casualty of the empire, not her trust, her instinct. You made the best person you know overrule her own alarm because the roof was already paid for. Lying to a mark never cost you sleep. Watching Carla choose the lie because you'd made the truth unaffordable, that cost you sleep. Level 3, the hire. The operation eventually outgrows your hands. 19 subscribers means 19 payment schedules, 19 risk profiles, 19 men who might one day do something desperate, and you can't watch them all from behind a counter that still has actual customers with actual broken laptops. In year 4, you hire help. His name is Devin. Remember that you did that. Remember that it felt like delegation, like any growing business, like nothing at all. Empires don't fall when the emperor gets greedy. They fall when he starts hiring. Within a year, Devin runs operations, and Devin is gifted in a way that should have terrified you on his first day. 29, forgettable face, community college certificate in network administration, and a talent you completely lack. He feels nothing. You watch him process the newsletter's full scope in one sitting, years of other men's dread laid out in a spreadsheet, and his single comment is that your nickname system will collapse past 50 subscribers and you should switch to numbers. Not a flicker about the content. You tell yourself that's professionalism. It's inventory management. To you, against every self-deception, the subscribers stay men. Gerald with his shaking hands, the deacon with his monthly check like a heartbeat. To Devin, they are rows, and a row cannot be pitied, and a row cannot be spared, and you have just handed a man who sees rows the keys to a warehouse of human beings. Level 4, the machine. By year 6, the newsletter clears $61,000 a month, and you have touched almost none of it in ways anyone can see. You still drive the Corolla. You still open the shop, because the shop is the aquifer everything drinks from, the place secrets walk in the door voluntarily, carried by their owners, at repair prices. Your rules, and you have rules, the way every monster has rules, are pressure-tested constantly by Devin's efficiency. Never take more than a man can pay without noticing. Never touch anyone whose collapse would make the news. Never contact families. Devin follows the rules and files their existence away as your weakness, and you mistake his compliance for agreement, which is exactly the mistake 19 men made about their friendly repair guy. The rules meet their first real test in year 5, when Pontoon misses 2 payments in a row. Devon's solution arrives in your inbox fully drafted, a letter with specifics in it, consequences, a deadline, a copy addressed to the wife. You kill it in 1 sentence and enforce the founding theorem instead. You do nothing. No reminder, no letter, silence. 6 weeks later, Pontoon resumes paying on his own, with a note apologizing for the delay because the blank space did the collecting the way it always does. You show Devon the note like a professor. Devon studies it and learns the wrong lesson completely. You think you taught him patience. What you actually taught him is that fear works even better than he thought, and that you are squeamish about using it. Level 5. The funeral. The reckoning arrives in year 7, not as a policeman, but as an obituary. Subscriber 11, nicknamed Casserole, a high school principal named Walt Hendricks, $1,100 a month for 6 years over emails you found suggesting an affair with a colleague. A cardiac event at his desk, dead at 58. You go to the funeral. You cannot explain why, then or ever. You stand at the back of a packed church while 400 people grieve a man you taxed, and his colleague, the affair, stands up to speak. Except she introduces herself as his sister-in-law, and over the next 10 minutes, through her eulogy, the actual shape of Walt's secret assembles itself in front of you like a car crash in reverse. There was no affair. The emails were Walt quietly moving money and cover stories to protect his brother's family from his brother's gambling debts, shielding his sister-in-law, lying to his own wife about sums, but never about love. His secret was that he was decent in a way too complicated to explain. He could have told you that. He could have explained, and any court of common sense would have acquitted him in a minute. But you had built the perfect machine, a machine that never accuses, never specifies, never listens. And so Walt spent 6 years and $79,000 protecting his family from a knife that was never real, mailing checks to a blank space, terrified of an accusation you never made, because you'd learned that the blank space is more profitable than any accusation could be. You drive home from the funeral and vomit in your own parking lot, between the nail salon and the sandwich place. You have spent 7 years telling yourself the founding theorem. They threaten themselves. I never ask, as if that made you the innocent bystander of your own income. Walt's funeral finally translates the theorem into English. You built a confession box that charges by the month and absolves no one. You spend that weekend doing something you've never done in 7 years, reading the newsletter as its subject would. 19 files, 19 men, and for the first time you let yourself total the other column, not what they paid, but what the paying did. Golf's second job, he told his wife, was a hobby. The councilman who never ran for the seat everyone said he'd win, because winning meant scrutiny, and scrutiny meant you. The deacon's ulcers. 19 lives quietly steered around a rock that was mostly your shadow on the water. You always told yourself you never destroyed anyone, and technically, the record supports you. You just charged 19 men rent on their own worst mornings, forever, and called the invoice a favor. That night, you decide to wind it down. Retire the newsletter, lapse the subscribers, let the fear evaporate on its own schedule. You inform Devon at the shop the next morning, and Devon listens, nods, agrees completely, and begins, that same week, in a rented office you don't know about, with copies you didn't know existed, building his own subscriber list. His rules are different. His rules are that your rules were overhead. Level 6. The envelope. It takes 14 months for Devon to destroy both of you, because Devon, unburdened by your cowardice, which he always mistook for your conscience, goes where the real money is. Bigger targets, actual threats, specified consequences, deadlines. The blank space was your art. Devon fills the blank space in, and a filled-in blank space is a felony with a return address. In the fall, he sends 3 explicit demand letters to the husband of a federal magistrate judge, a man whose secret was real, but whose wife's Rolodex was realer, and the FBI's Tampa field office takes the case personally in the way it does when someone extorts one of its own. Devon lasts 9 days under surveillance before a controlled payment, and Devon, feeling nothing, cooperates completely before the fingerprint ink dries and hands them 7 years of you. The takedown of your life is quiet, which stings in a way you're not entitled to. No raid, no news vans. 2 agents in the shop at 9:40 on a Wednesday, patient as auditors, and the strangest arrest in the history of the strip mall because you keep helping them. Here's the ledger. Here are the accounts. The password is Marcus's birthday. One agent finally asks why you're being so cooperative, and you tell him the truth, that you've been waiting 7 years for someone to ask you a direct question, and he writes that down, visibly unsure what to do with it. The trial is where you finally meet your business face to face. Extortion conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and the government calls the subscribers as witnesses, and one by one, Golf and Pontoon and the Deacon take the stand, and you watch something you never once imagined in 7 years of spreadsheets. Relief. These men, ruined, describing their payments in open court, and half of them look better than you've ever seen them look. Lighter. The Deacon actually thanks the prosecutor. His wife is in the second row, holding his coat, and whatever happened in that house when the truth came out, it wasn't the face he'd spent $900 a month to never see. You spent his money for years believing you sold silence. The testimony teaches you the actual product. You sold men a reason to never find out if they were loved. Gerald Fisk testifies last. Gerald, the founder, the man who crossed his own $500 over your counter and invented your career without your permission. He's 59 now, divorced anyway, because the affair surfaced on its own 2 years ago, and here is the arithmetic he delivers to the courtroom in a flat, exhausted voice. He paid you a total of $41,500 across 7 years to prevent an outcome that happened regardless, and the outcome, when it came, was survivable, and the paying was not. The paying, he says, was the worst part. The paying was every single month. He never looks at you once. It's the most expensive product review in the history of commerce. 11 years. Carla comes to the sentencing, sits where the Deacon's wife sat, and doesn't hold your coat. Her statement to the judge is 1 paragraph. She says, "He paid for my roof with other people's nightmares, and I let myself not ask." She says, "That's on me, and I'm here so it stays on me." Then she looks at you and says the only sentence of the whole proceeding you'll serve every day of. Marcus asks about you. I haven't decided yet. Prison is manageable for a man who spent a career studying fear, right up until month 5, when an envelope arrives in mail call. No return address, postmarked Tampa. Inside is a single photograph of the back room of your old shop, your workbench, your drawer, taken from inside, taken years ago, angle and dust suggesting a Tuesday you can't identify. No note, no demand, nothing but the fact of it. Someone, at some point, was in your room and knows something and wants you to know they know and has left the rest blank. You sit on your bunk with the photograph and feel your own machine close around you from the inside, the manufactured dread, the self-authored threat, the customer doing the manufacturing. It's flawless. You'd admire it if you could breathe. You never learn who sent it. That's the design. You tape the photograph to the wall of your cell, where other men keep pictures of their families, because you have finally located the honest price of everything you built, and it turns out the currency was never money. It was this, exactly this. And the terms, you know better than anyone, are monthly, and the balance never posts, and the account, per the founding theorem, is managed entirely by you.